Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the webinar, Hot Dog, Winning Animal Rescue Multi-Channel Marketing Ideas. I'm Angela Noter from the Animal Care Team with Grizzard, and I will be our moderator today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. I'm excited to share with you today the multi-channel campaigns we created with 3 of our animal care partners and their great results. The 3 animal care organizations we are highlighting are the Michigan Humane Society, Animal Humane Society in Minneapolis, and Animal Rescue League of Western Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh. These multi-channel campaigns helped all 3 reach new markets and new generations of donors, aggressively growing their donor files in a short time. I'm excited to introduce our 2 strategic advisors who work directly with these organizations every day, Leah Collins and Christina Brooks.
Hello.
For the past 5 years, Leah has overseen the direct marketing strategy and program management for local humane societies and SPCAs across the country. Prior to joining Grizzard, Leah worked in nonprofit development at a hospital foundation and in annual giving at the George Washington University. For the last 2 years, Christina has managed annual marketing programs for more than a dozen of our animal welfare clients. Before joining our animal care team, she was a Grizzard client at the Red Cross, where she managed their direct mail program. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, before we get started, I have a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, to optimize our sound and audio quality, all attendees are muted during this session. If for some reason you have the phone icon in your dialog box, please physically mute your phone. We encourage you to type your questions in the box, and we will be answering some at the end. We will also have polls during the webinar. I will put these out for your input from time to time. Please note that your GoToWebinar dialog box will minimize by default after a few minutes, but you can expand it by clicking on the orange box with the arrow pointing left. We're scheduled for 45 minutes today, with time at the end allowed for Q&A. If you would like to tweet your comments, please jump in and do so. Please use #GrizzardCom. Before I turn this over to Christina and Leah, a few words about Grizzard, for those of you who may not know us that well yet. We have partnerships with more than 1,400 nonprofits in North America, and we've raised more than $4 billion for these organizations. We have 200 associates nationwide, and we help clients improve results by building passionate and loyal donors. We do that through better messaging, digital integration, and multi-channel fundraising strategies. So without further ado, let's dig into these exciting campaigns. Before we go any further, we have a poll question. What is your organization's experience with integration? Do you currently utilize direct mail and online, direct mail online and additional channels, or what the heck is integration? Please give us your response now, and we'll tally the results momentarily. We'll give a few more seconds for folks to respond. All right, here we are. It looks like 50% of you are already using multi-channel integration, which is great to see. Another 25% of you are utilizing direct mail and online. 10% of you are using direct mail, and 15% of you are in the right place because you are going to learn a lot about integration today. So welcome to the webinar. All right, now I'm going to throw it over to the ladies to tell us a bit more about these campaigns.
All right, great. Thanks, Angela. Let's start with talking about what is integration. Definitely, it's one of the buzzwords in the industry right now, so I thought we would start this presentation of our multi-channel campaigns by just giving you a brief definition about how Grizzard, for this presentation, is talking about integration. So integration is an overarching message that's repeated across multiple channels. It's not exactly the same as a brand, although It definitely would be utilizing similar colors and logos, but it's not the same thing. And really to be something that we would call integrated as far as a campaign, you need to have a consistent creative look and feel across all the different media that you're using. So as we were doing research for this webinar through Google, we were trying to find out how many people or how many messages do people see a day. And there was a really wide range when we were looking at that. Some of the more conservative numbers were about 2,000, anywhere up to about 300,000, which is to say that we are bombarded with messages. And so to really get an impact and try to have our donors make an action, make a gift, we need them to see this message multiple times. So based on our standards in the industry, we use an estimate of 7 to 12 times to be seen for your message to really get across to donors and have them take an action.
And so to get more specific with the integrated campaigns that we did, each of the 3 organizations that we worked with all had goals. That's why they wanted to do integrated campaigns. They had things they wanted to achieve. They all were interested in acquiring new donors. They all wanted to increase current and future revenue, and they wanted to increase their online presence and community awareness. But we should let you know the 3 campaigns that we're going to be talking about today were not cultivation campaigns, they were fundraising campaigns.
All right. And so I know everybody is talking about breaking down silos and how can we get our organization to all work together cohesively. So this was a great project for one of our organizations that we were working with. They had newly merged their marketing communications team. And so this was really a great project and may also be a good option for your organization to all work together to meet your goals.
And so let's kind of dive into the meat of it. We know that we as animal welfare organizations have a typical donor. So that typical donor, based on our Brizard research and many, many decades of experience, we've seen the typical animal welfare donor base is mostly female. They tend to be younger. They tend to make a higher average gift, and they actually tend to make purchases and subscriptions consistent with an affluent, highly educated lifestyle. For example, they're interested in purchases around pets, women's apparel, travel, food and wine, arts, and that kind of thing. So they're a good donor base. And then each organization had to have a featured animal. So based on the donor profile that I just told you about, mostly female, affluent, younger, we had to work together with each organization and find an animal and a story that would be told throughout the campaign. So we had to make sure that we found the right animal to use over and over again.
Right, and I think it's important that this is really one of the key parts of the campaign. It's also one of the more challenging parts because you really want to make sure that you select an animal that is the right fit for that community. We know from our historical benchmarks that a dog performs better than an animal, or a dog performs better than a cat, for direct response campaigns. And so that's why you'll see these 3 dogs on the slide here. So each community selected their own specific animal. And then another thing that we take into consideration is the photo, because that's such a large part of it. And so for these, we really want to make sure that we feature the eyes of the animal, which is a really great way to connect with the soul and really take a stance for these animals.
Mm-hmm. So please remember, these are the 3 animals that we use throughout the campaigns, throughout the integrated campaigns with the clients, and they're also the same animals you'll be seeing over and over again throughout our webinar. So you want to do integration. Let's talk about what types of media can be used. Of course, there's your traditional direct mail, which is really the workhorse of your fundraising. But at this point, if you're doing integration, you want to go into other things. There's newspapers and magazines. You can do a television ad. Of course, there's online, email, website, integration, that kind of thing. And then you can think about outdoors. Are we going to put this message on billboards, bus shelters? For us, dog parks were an option. We even had one organization that used an inbound call center so donors could call in with questions and feedback.
Great. So next we'll just take a few minutes to walk you through some of the components that we used for this campaign, starting with the mail. This was our main source of revenue. And what you'll see on the screen, we used that same animal throughout each of these pieces. You can see the acquisition piece as well as the donor renewal featured Samantha. And then the third component that we used through the mail was a wealth saturation piece where we targeted within each community some of the higher income areas for those addresses and individuals who we may not be able to find through the rental acquisition list. In addition to the mail, we used a few other print components. One of those is a magazine ad. For the organization Animal Rescue League in Pittsburgh, we featured this ad of Lily in one of their local magazines for the community. We also included Lily's story requesting a donation through the ad in the newspaper. And then on the left side, you see the free seating inserts. And that is a self-contained piece that is inserted into the newspaper, generally on the same day as Food Day or Coupon Day. And once you open up that piece, you see Lily's story, a little bit more information about the organization, and then a request for a gift.
She sure is cute.
And then some of the other components that we used for out-of-home were a movie theater ad. These were 15 and 30-second ads that went into movie theaters in targeted neighborhoods within the community. And we worked together with our partner organization to select where these went based on their demographics and also where they really felt that they wanted to try to target a specific donor. On the right side, you see bus shelter ads. Interesting to note that we're not necessarily always targeting bus riders or public transportation riders. A big part of this, because it's such a high traffic area, is that these are also used to catch the attention of pedestrians and cars that are just driving by, as well as bus riders. And then the last piece on here is the billboard. And for this organization, we did a combination of print as well as the digital. And that was based on their local traffic patterns and reaching out to the correct demographic wherever each billboard was located. And then the last piece of creative that we'll be sharing is the 30-second television spot that we produced for Animal Humane Society. All three of the organizations that we worked with and are sharing the results in this presentation did television ads. Certainly it's not a mandatory part of the campaign, but it was one of the things that we found that their donors within the community were using. So really for all of these channels, we used Scarborough reports and other research tools that we have at Grizzard in our media department to select where we should be trying to target donors. And so we found that for each of these communities, donors were watching TV, which is not a surprise, but what we were able to target was when were those donors watching TV based on their age and their gender. So these are definitely an investment, a little bit more expensive part of the campaign due to both the production of the commercial as well as buying those ad buys. But for these organizations, we felt that it was a good fit and they were wanting to make that investment and use that media to get across to their donors. So we're going to attempt to share this with you. It's a 30-second spot. We've tested it before the go-to meeting to make sure that it works. We know that technology is not always our friend, but we're hopeful that it will work. We know that it's going to be a little bit jumpy on the visual portion, but hopefully you'll still be able to hear the audio very clearly, and I think you'll still kind of get the emotional impact of the message. So.
She was abandoned, hungry, hurt, and alone. When Esmeralda was found, she could hardly walk. She needed immediate surgery.
but she pulled through.
Now, Esmeralda is living without pain, but other animals need your help.
Believe you can make a difference. Please make a gift today.
All right, great. So it seems like it may work.
And we can always send out that link afterwards if you'd like to watch the full thing without us. So this has been great. We learned about what we did for print and outdoor media and that kind of thing, but let's talk about what's going on online. Because nowadays that's such an important part of any campaign. So we know that donors are getting that direct mail piece in their homes and then they're interested, so they're going online to check you out. And while on the left side of this, you can see that older donors are still giving to direct mail, and like I said before, it's the workhorse of your fundraising. Younger donors are going online to make that gift. So they may also be getting the direct mail piece, but it can be more of the catalyst that prompts them to make the gift. Let's talk about the digital components of each integrated campaign after this.
Right, I think part of that is that we just want to make sure that it's easy for the donor. And so if they want to give through the mail, great. But if maybe they are more prone to go and Google you and get onto your website, you want to make it easy for them to be able to find exactly where they want to go.
Very true. So digital components that we did for this. Of course, we put matching graphics, matching campaign graphics on the organization's website. So those were graphics of Samantha, Lily, and Esmeralda right there on the website. So you get the direct mail piece, you Google the organization, and immediately when you get to the home page, you see that animal that you've seen in the direct mail piece. So you're not lost. We also made sure to do emails to donors. Social media was a very important part of this. Organizations made sure on their own to use the power of social media, whether it be their Facebook or Twitter. That's free, so that's a fantastic way for them to spread the message. We made sure to have matching banner ads. So you can see here we have Lily. You can see her on a local website banner ad. Then you click on that and you go to her donation page where you also see her cute face again. And then something kind of neat and new that we did for Pittsburgh specifically was a Google AdWords campaign. So let's do a poll. How many of you know about Google AdWords?
Or Google Grants.
Or Google Grants.
So the question is, what is your organization's experience with Google Grants? We have a Google Grant, but we don't know how we're using it. We have a Google Grant and we use it strategically, or what is a Google Grant? We'll give you all a few seconds to answer. All right, here we are. Great. Again, you are in the right place because it looks like a majority of you are asking, what is a Google Grant? And we will answer that question. Looks like another 14% of you are split evenly, 14 and 14, to having a Google Grant but maybe not necessarily using it, and having a Google Grant and using it strategically already, which is great. We're glad to see that.
All right, very exciting. It's good to kind of get the pulse of that because I think we are not totally sure how many of you are comfortable with Google Grants and Google AdWords, so let's learn more about that. Okay, so digital integration and Google. The Animal Rescue League of Western Pennsylvania applied for a Google grant, which is $10,000 in kind of monthly Google advertising. So anyone can apply for this at any time. I'm going to pause for 1 second just to make sure everybody's seeing the right slide.
Yeah, I know we're still looking at the poll, but why don't we go ahead and keep just walking through
Okay.
so what it is.
Animal Rescue League of Western Pennsylvania applied for a grant, and anyone can apply for this as long as you're not a political or religious organization. So that's a lot of clients out there today. They were awarded this $10,000 a month in-kind grant of free Google advertising. We've probably all seen Google ads. You see them when you Google something, either at the top of the page or on the right side of the page. Those are ads that are typically paid for by for-profit organizations, but now nonprofits have a way to get in on the action. So we have staff at Grizzard that's experienced in doing Google ad buys, and they manage this program. They've done ad buys for for-profit companies and for nonprofit companies, so they kind of know how it works in both ways. And then we implemented the program for Pittsburgh during their integrated campaign throughout the months of November and December. I should say also that it kind of takes some time to get this program optimized and up and running efficiently. So if you were ever interested in learning more about Google Grants or Google AdWords, I would kind of plan a couple months ahead of your integrated campaign. You may want to apply now. Let's see.
Yeah, so just to acknowledge, we know that you all are still seeing the poll question. We're working on getting it updated so you can actually see what we're talking about. And what you're missing right now is this great slide of Tom Cruise saying, "So what? Show me the money." We've shared all of the images and kind of the strategy behind it, and now we are hoping to move into the results of the campaign. So the great news is that for all of these organizations, we saw an increase in donors and revenue. So that we know that it was a success just through that. So what we will be walking through, hopefully momentarily, is some of the more interesting results from each of the organizations. And we pulled out just 2 or 3 from each to highlight as we're walking through this presentation. All right, so I say we keep going. So we're starting with Michigan Humane Society and just pulling out a couple of top results from this organization. They were, through this campaign and through everything that they did as an organization and through this expanded media campaign, they increased their gross revenue by 14% over the previous year during the time of the campaign.
That's really fantastic.
Yeah, so 14%, and that's across donor and acquisition, because we know that, of course, you're going to see responses to these pieces, and the acquisition piece, one of the main goals is finding new donors. But it also is impacting those donors, and they're seeing you out in the community and continuing to give. And from these results, 14% over the year before, giving at a higher rate, which is wonderful to see. And we were especially pleased with this from Michigan Humane Society because this was actually the second year in a row that they had really done a strong push during the holiday season. The second great metric that we saw from Michigan Humane Society is this is a combination of their wonderful communication staff, but we increased their online donations during the 4th quarter of the year by 40%. All right, well, here is on the screen, we're seeing, oh, all right.
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking at Michigan Humane Society, and here's the results just in a visual that we just talked through. Overall revenue up 14%, and online donations up 40%.
Samantha's face would make anyone want to give.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I think we're going to stay on this slide, but we're going to start talking about Animal Humane Society, which is the organization that we did this campaign for in Minneapolis. So this was the first time that they had done an integrated campaign during the holiday season, and they saw a great result. We certainly increased the number of acquisition direct mail pieces that we sent out, but even with that, we saw the number of new donors that they acquired across the holiday go up by 78%, which is really huge. And you can just imagine as these donors continue to give, that revenue each campaign will continue to grow.
Because we know a donor is not worth just their first gift. They can be worth so many gifts in your future.
Right, and that's such an important thing to talk about. And while we're kind of waiting on our slides to catch up with us, why don't we just talk about that for a minute, Christina? Sure. Because we know that, especially when you are talking with leadership in your organization and perhaps your board members, there have been times that we've heard about that board members have really asked, why are we doing acquisition and talking about why are we making this investment.
Right. And it's such an investment in your future because we know that donors are going to move or they're going to pass away or something's going to happen where your database records, your donors could fall off your file, if you will. So you have to remember that you need to keep on investing in the community, prospecting for those people who want to give to you. They just don't know it yet. So acquisition.
Right. And I know we're really focusing today on direct marketing and those lower dollar donors, but that's really where your whole giving program starts.
Mm-hmm.
We have that donor pyramid that we've all seen 100 times, and you have to continue to build that base so that you have donors available who already have an established relationship with your organization,
mm-hmm.
that you can continue to move up that giving pyramid,
mm-hmm.
and hopefully eventually get to the major donor or the planned giving state.
In fact, they just recently did some research on one of my clients, and they brought on 270 donors in a very small acquisition campaign we just did. But knowing what their average gift is and how much these donors mean to them over time, they will eventually make about $23,000 off of those 270 donors they brought on. So very exciting for them, the value of acquisition.
Right, certainly. So it's an investment at the beginning, but then generally, and for our Grizzard benchmark, generally for direct mail, we see that retention and making that investment back within a year or two.
Yes.
And it's different, certainly, for every organization based on how the results come in, the response rate and the average gift, and there are so many factors that go into that. But certainly we have seen those revenues come back quickly.
Very true.
Which is a great selling point for your board and for your leadership to show that it's not just that first gift and the investment on those new donors, but their continued relationship with your organization.
Mm-hmm. And we want to say sorry, we are having technical difficulties. Perhaps Google crashed our presentation because they were so upset that many people didn't know what Google grants were. So time to go apply for those.
I bet that's it.
It's a Google conspiracy.
All right, so while we're still on this homepage, let's just continue to talk a little bit about Animal Humane Society so that we don't hold the presentation up too much. So we talked about how they had increased the number of acquisition mailings that they had done and increased their new donors by 78%. Based on the number of donors that they had before the campaign, we were able to grow their file 8%. So the number of donors on their file that we were actively communicating with and soliciting is now 8% higher.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. And then the third great results that we found for Animal Humane Society had to do with their lapsed donors. So we were able to reactivate 2 times the number of lapsed donors during this campaign. And we did that both through a donor appeal that was focused on the lapsed donors, but also you will find that a lot of really extended lapsed folks reactivate through this type of campaign. Seeing all of the different channels that are out in the marketplace, they already have that established relationship, and so this gives them just another opportunity to come back into your fold and join the community.
Those are some great results, Leah.
Mm-hmm.
So to talk about the Animal Rescue League of Western Pennsylvania, this was their first integrated campaign, and it was a really exciting step for them. They'd kind of not done large amounts of acquisition before, so this was a wonderful leap for them, and luckily for them, everything turned out really well. So their overall donations increased a whopping 12%, which was really exciting and fantastic. We were so happy to see that. And then their website visits increased almost 28% with the help of Google AdWords and those online banner ads. So Google AdWords, go. Let's do this. It's, free grant money for you, so I definitely recommend it. And then their active donors increased almost 30%, and that really is because they increased the amount of acquisition they were mailing. They really took that leap of faith and said, we really hope we're going to bring on a lot of new donors, and they increased their active donor file almost 30%. Those donors are going to mean so much to them in the future. And something that's hard to quantify, they really felt that they developed their own identity within the Pittsburgh community. There are other shelters in the area that they wanted to make sure that their voice was heard. So there was a cultivation aspect in it that we didn't really even expect, and it turned out to be so important to them. They consider themselves to be the #1 animal welfare organization in Pittsburgh, and I kind of agree.
All right, so for those of you who are potentially multitasking, we're back on the screen. If you want to flip back to GoToMeeting so you can continue to follow the visual part of our presentation.
And thank you so much for staying with us. Let's talk about the estimated return on investment. So this is a break-even from one of the organizations. It's a great illustration of how donors can mean so much to you eventually. So it's kind of like what I was saying, the 270 donors that came on, they all have a certain value, but they're going to continue to give to your organization. So we can see in year 5, according to this illustration, how much those donors that were brought on through this campaign are going to mean to your organization. This is the future of your organization. These are your sustainers.
Right, and one piece of this is how do you retain a donor? Great that they're coming on as a new donor, but how do they stay with your organization? The great thing that we found after analyzing some of our 2011 results is that those donors who came on through the integrated channels are retaining about the same, and in some cases a little bit higher than those direct mail folks. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely another reason that this is a great type of campaign to run, is that those donors stay with you.
Very true. Okay, so we've told you lots of really fantastic things about these 3 organizations and their integrated campaigns, but let's talk about 5 things that your organization can do right now to start multi-channel integration. We know you loved all the points we made. You're ready. How are you going to do it?
One of the great things that was done by Animal Humane Society was the coming together of the different departments. So busting down those silos within your organization. One of the things that I really recommend that organizations do is getting everybody together in the room and talking about, from a donor's perspective, what is this donor receiving? So potentially with your communications and your marketing or fundraising departments all getting together and actually creating an annual calendar, a messaging calendar, so that you know, okay, this day they're getting a newsletter, this week they're getting a direct mail piece, this week they're getting an invitation to the walk, whatever it is, so that really from the donor's perspective, everybody within the organization has buy-in to ensuring that it's the best experience for them.
Mm-hmm. And then I think the other thing you can do is rethink how you analyze your results in revenue. As a former development person, I remember we used to have specific revenue streams or line items or buckets, and it was direct mail was one, online was another, plant giving was another. You need to start thinking of all of those things as working together. So nowadays we know that direct mail and online are so linked that you can't count them as separate things. So if you're thinking that way, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. It's okay to kind of put some of those buckets together, and the staff members that are managing those buckets. We all work together to bring it in, and so it's really any money received is good money. It doesn't matter who brought it in or which revenue stream it came from.
Definitely. Another thing that you can start to do now in preparation for possible campaigns to come is start educating your stakeholders. Start talking to your leadership and your board members about the value of a multi-channel campaign. Definitely the marketplace is changing. The way that people communicate and are making their gifts is changing. So it's important to recognize that, start talking about it, and create a plan for how going forward you can deal with that.
Very true. And then strategize internally for ways you can get your brand out there. You don't have to do anything fancy. Just meet weekly with all of those departments that have, come together, all of your marketing and your fundraising department and everything. Meet together weekly. Be creative. Think outside your comfort zone. Include everybody. Come up with new ideas to get your brand out there. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah, and even, for animal welfare organizations, even involve your program staff, your adoption center staff. Mm-hmm. They are doing some great promotions, and there's always the potential to work together to promote either an adoption event or a fundraising event or just, if everybody knows what's going on, you'd be surprised by the types of ideas that come out.
Sure, they know the people that are being touched by your programs.
Mm-hmm. And then last on our list is start to think about now possible stories that you can tell that really embody your mission, because that is such a challenge. I know we talked about with these animals, really selecting the right dog for the community that had the best picture as well as the story that really made an impact in that community. So if you can start now, you could use them anywhere. And this may be something you're already doing, but just grabbing materials that could go into your newsletter or a direct mail piece or an e-newsletter, or it could be a feature on your website. There's so many possibilities of places to feature really great things that each organization is doing. And, it's definitely some work, but to put together information that could be used in future marketing materials is a great first step.
Mm-hmm. Those are some great points.
All right, well, Leah and Christina, thank you so much for that great presentation. I think that was a lot of excellent information. We're going to take a few minutes now to answer a couple of your questions. We have a few right here. The first one is, my organization is smaller than these. Can a small organization implement an integrated campaign?
Yes, absolutely. I think Pittsburgh, to use them as an example, while they're not a small organization by any means, perhaps they felt that they were, but they selected the right kind of integration for them. There's nothing that is off limits for you, so through some of your staff brainstorming sessions and maybe budgeting, you can figure out what is appropriate for your size.
And what's great to mention there also is that your organization may have existing relationships with media who may be able to, even though you're a small organization or maybe you have a small budget, definitely building those relationships within the community, you may be able to do this sort of thing at a budget that is comfortable for your organization.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I have a question here for you, Christina, about the Animal Rescue League. In your presentation and the statistics you were talking about, what is considered an active donor when you were talking about the fact that they grew their active donor file?
That's a good question. Active donor is anybody who's given a gift in the last 0 to 24 months.
That's great. So the fact that they grew, I think you said 30% from this one campaign was a pretty significant leap for them as an organization.
It was a huge leap for them. And now the fantastic thing is that they are reaching out to those donors on a regular basis. They're cultivating them with, newsletters, emails, direct mail pieces, that kind of thing. So they're really involving those new donors in their lives. It's great. Very exciting.
Wonderful. All right, I have one more question here. I have a set budget for acquisition. How do I determine if my money is better spent on direct mail versus these other channels?
Whoa, that's a good one. As I generally say, it depends on your organization and what your priorities are. If your priorities are to bring in new donors and maybe you're seeing stagnant results in your direct mail acquisition, this might be a good fit for you. If you're still seeing great results with your direct mail acquisition, that is always has been one of the backbones of our programs. But if you either maybe you're not seeing the same results that you have throughout the years in direct mail, or you just want to get those new donors, or you really want to increase your awareness, like Christina, you spoke to about Animal Rescue of Western Pennsylvania, how they have some competitors and they really wanted to be seen as the animal welfare organization in the community. This might be a great option for you, and that might be when you consider a broader campaign.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that that this kind of thing is the future of fundraising, so you need to be thinking about that as time goes on. This is the way things are going, multi-channel. Right,
and if you are on the line and a current Grizzard client, definitely, if you have questions, contact your strategic advisor. That's why we're here. We're here to help talk through your goals, talk through your priorities, talk through how are your programs doing currently, and make those decisions about, is this a good fit for me?
Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all of your time today. We really appreciate all of your answers, Leah and Christina, and all your insight to these great programs. And thank you, listeners, for sticking with us even through our technical difficulties. We really appreciate it. This is all our time for today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact any of us directly. We will also be posting a recording of this presentation along with the slides on grizzard.com. You will get an email with that link in a few days. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed this webinar as much as we did.